Hi, everyone, and welcome to Acumen's Webinar Wednesday. My name is Stephen Phelps, and I'm the Marketing Director here at Acumen. And today we brought in Nick Nabozny, who is our Sage Intacct Practice Director, to go over what's new in the latest release of Sage Intacct. Sage Intacct 2023 Release 4 was launched in November and comes with over a dozen feature updates and enhancements. But before we dive in, please note that today's webinar is in listen-only mode, and if you have any questions, then please use the chat option and we'll answer near the end of the presentation. We have a lot to cover in 30 minutes, so I will now pass it on to Nick.
Thanks, Stephen, and thank you everyone for attending this morning or afternoon based on your location. As Stephen mentioned, this is the November 10th release, and we're going to go through some of the highlights today, not every single one of them. I'm going to remind you, certainly I see some new users on or recent Intacct users on the list today, so I'm going to remind you where to find the full list of release notes, and we're going to go through some of the ones that we think will give the most bang for your buck, or some of the kind of bigger changes are most important for our clients that are using Intacct. So I'm going to flip between the PowerPoint and Sage Intacct to talk about a few of these different things and kind of show you some of the details. I won't really go through every single setting of every change. We just don't have time for that today, but by all means, if you see something you'd like to further talk about, or you go into the release notes inside Intacct and you see something that you'd like to chat about, please give us a call, open a support ticket, reach out to your account manager, especially for those of you that are on customer success plans. Happy to kind of jump on a call and go through any of these in further detail with you and explain how they might affect your business or might help you with reporting or changes in policy or workflow, those type of things. So let's kind of jump in here. So as always, Intacct does quarterly releases, right? And each of their releases is focused on these three pillars. They work on automation, helping to further take away redundant data entry, right? Helping to build workflow into the system. They work on insights to build information. The whole goal of Intacct, right, is to give you visibility into your data, provide information as real time as possible to you so that you can make good decisions in a timely manner. And then lastly, ease of use. So we went through all of the release notes, all of the different features. I want to focus on a couple of them, as we said today. So a few in each of the categories. You can see we're going to talk about advanced ownership consolidations, which is a new module out there in the consolidation family. Talk about a little bit of the changes for bank reconciliations and AR multiple customer payments, receiving money from multiple customers on a single payment and splitting that across multiple customers. On the insights, we're going to talk about a change to project / grants for our not-for-profits on the call today, estimates and budgets, changes to the revaluation process in multi-currency environments, and also mention inventory fulfillment a little bit. And then really focus on some of these ease of use changes, because I think this will help the most, the largest group of people on the call this afternoon. Certainly changing, or the ability now to change your GL account numbers, right? That's huge, that's brand new, that's something people have been asking for quite some time. The ability to add a recall or a recall button, or use that in the AP approval process. Change to the AR/AP aging reports, some of the changes to the UI user interface, which you may have noticed since you're using that, and then also the ability for customers to manage a sandbox. So let's kind of jump over to Intacct before we dig into the rest of the PowerPoint here, because I do want to just show you quickly how to get into this list of release notes, and certainly for some of the new users out there. So let's go show my taskbar and let's open up Intacct here. And the way I can very easily review the release notes is to click on the home button here at the top and launch this page, which you may use all the time if you're flipping through multiple entities. If you're a single entity, maybe you don't go to this page all the time, so this might be new to some people, but here up at the top, you can always find good information here on this home screen. Of course, at the top here are the release notes, but also are things like the on-demand learning, the video library, the help support section, customer support, post the lookup support, things like that. Access to the Intacct community and user groups where you can post questions and then have people review those and answer those and help with those. And also the Sage member master classes are also listed here, so very easy to find. And those have been pretty good. Sage has done a really nice job with some of those. But today we're really going to focus on these release notes, right? So you can click on read the release note. And certainly if I go up, I can see the release calendar and I can go back in time and see all of the releases over the last few years, right? Quarterly releases. And I can go back to, if you've missed one and want to review, everything is there. And you can see that there are quite a bit of changes and enhancements in this last release in November. As I said, we're going to go through a few of them, but this will go through in detail by module, every single change with a nice little link to read more about it, with information on how to set it up, with instructions. We're going to cover some of them today, but this is a really good place to go find that type of information. Okay, so let's start with this new module or new program, right? And it's called Advanced Ownership Consolidations. They've redone or renamed the consolidation family of modules. And so this advanced ownership consolidation really enhances the ability to do consolidation for our clients who need to do partial ownership. It's not going to necessarily fit every single scenario, but it does do a really nice job where there's partial or tier or less than 100% ownership structure, and you can have multiple levels, as you can see here. It will do both single currency and multi-currency if you have that need, or have ownership groups that are in different countries or different currencies, of course. So you can do currency translation, eliminations, rolling up and automatically eliminated, and then also non-controlling interests in here. So that is a new module. There is a cost there that is now kind of in general availability. So if there's something that is interesting to you there, or you may need to or want to take a look at, just let us know, and we certainly can dig a bit deeper there for you. But when you have that partial ownership, this does a nice job in most scenarios. The next is something that was offered to the bank reconciliation or the cash management module, right? And so everyone can certainly benefit from this. I believe everyone on the call is doing bank reconciliations and certainly would love to do that even faster than you can with the automated bank recs that are already in play, right? So if we take a look at the bank transaction assistant, this is a new function, I'm going to call it, as part of the bank setup that is going to really allow you to assign a customer to a bank transaction. It's going to create the payment for you if it finds it there. It's going to apply that payment to an open invoice or really create a cash advance in the system. So again, automating that process, doing more of that data entry for you. And it also is going to give you really the ability to do bulk processing, where you can select a payment application method and then optionally create advances when there's an open invoice, if there's not one available there. So it really does kind of allow you to use more automation. Again, it's going to do the matching, the addition of the transaction, and then also kind of complete that process for you. So before it would make that transaction for you, but then you had to go match it. You had to go create the customer, perhaps, or match the customer, or assign the customer, I should say. And there were still some steps to do. So it may not fit for everyone, but for lots of our clients that I see on the call today, that could certainly be a huge benefit, certainly when there are ACH payments being received and those types of things in that scenario. Next is the reconciliation match sequence. And this is a function that's going to help throughout the kind of remainder of enhancements to the reconciliation process. And what we're doing is now assigning a sequence number, and it's really what we call an alpha sequence number. And it's going to assign that to the matched transactions. It's going to allow the system now to leverage that matching sequence to see kind of the relationship between bank and Intacct transactions. So if you review the results of bank and credit card reconciliations, knowing that only Intacct can assign these numbers, if you say, oops, that wasn't the correct match, you can unmatch the two. You can review that then really in a draft scenario to make sure that everything is assigned correctly. So it's going to give it that unique value, that kind of audit trail, so to speak, right? And allow you to kind of have Intacct control that sequence and help better identify those matched transactions. There's a little bit of setup involved to do that. So let's take a look at the screens and settings on how we actually go in and set that up. Let's close the release notes here. And let's go into cash management. And we'll go into setup and configuration. And we need to first enable the bank transaction assistant, right? So that was the first thing we just talked about there. You can turn that on to allow that transaction assistant to work in the system. A couple of notes on that. The currencies must match if you want it to be able to assign the customer. And certainly if you're a multi-entity company, you have multiple either properties. I see some of our hotel clients on the call. You have multiple entities out there. The currencies must match for the bank, the entity, and the customer for the bank transaction assistant to be able to do that automation for you. And then also, you don't want to have a terms discount assigned. So if there's early payment discounts in certain scenarios for a customer, that's not going to work very well. So those are really the two kind of caveats or two notes on that. Currencies and terms discounts can't really be involved. Otherwise, the bank transaction assistant can't do what it needs to do. Also here, while we're in here, let's take a look at the document sequence, right? So if we go to company, setup, and document sequences, this is where I would go to add a numbering sequence, right, for a particular type of transaction. And here we're going to want to be able to add one for this reconciliation matching sequence. Now, we do have to open a support ticket for you in order for alpha to be turned on. Once we do that, you can go in and assign this sequence ID to be an alpha sequence, and then you can go ahead and turn this on in your environment. So, but you can't do it without a support ticket. That's something we'll open for you, and Sage will make that alpha option for you here. And then you certainly can turn that on and start using it. Okay, important general ledger changes. There are 3 that I thought were really worth talking about this afternoon. And first is the ability to change your GL account numbers. Previously, there was no way to do that. You had to reclass, right, and just make an account inactive. But now I can actually go ahead and just change the GL account number. The kind of recommendation for Sage, right, is to leave that setting off when you're not actively making changes, so that someone doesn't accidentally go in and change something on you. And remember, this is a new feature, so there will be security around this. So if you don't see the setting that we're going to take a look at in just a second, make sure that you check your security permissions to make sure that the desired users have rights to be able to change the GL account number. When you change the global setting on and off, the security permissions will stay, so you don't have to reassign those each time, but they will obviously not work if the global setting is turned off. So that's kind of Intacct's suggestion of best practices, and it will allow you to change the account number. You can actually change the length of the account number. So if for some reason you run out of account numbers and need to add length to be able to have more digits, you certainly can do that. And then there are kind of a few, again, notes on that as well that I found. You want to make sure you check reports for things like account ranges, right, where you may have typed in a range. If you select the account from the dropdown, that's okay because it's not a manual entry, so to speak. But if you typed in, say, 1,000 to 999 and you change account 1,000 because it's manual and not selected in that account group, you want to make sure that you account for that. Other things where that might not necessarily change automatically are things like smart rules and smart events. And that might be something that we've helped you build to automate a process, create a trigger, do an integration, any of those kind of things. So if you have any questions there, certainly reach out and I'm happy to help you kind of take a look at those. Now, the other two important things to note are in the kind of locking of fiscal periods now, right? When we have statutory periods that are locked, you'll no longer be able to change that information with an adjustment. So you won't be able to post an adjustment to a closed statutory period. So you'll be able to safely run reports knowing that your data has not changed once you've closed and locked that particular period for a statutory reporting period. And then lastly, you can limit the number of unlocked fiscal periods that you have in the system. So control how far into the future you might want to be able to post. Some clients have said, well, I don't really ever want to be able to post into the future 4, 5, or 6 years. We don't need to do that. So you can now limit that in the configure GL section of Intacct. Okay, next is receiving a single AR payment for multiple customers. Again, in industries where you're going to get a check or an ACH payment or a credit card payment for multiple invoices that may cross a number of different customers, you'll be able to now apply that in a single transaction. This can be parent-child relationship customers, or it can simply just be unrelated multiple customers in the system. So there's some settings to obviously get that turned on. So let's jump over to Intacct for a second and take a look at how you turn that on, how you configure that, and how it will work. So first, you do have to have a document sequence for AR payments now. And so that's not something that will be in the system. So you have to create a document sequence for AR payments. And I gave it an ARPY prefix and then just started at 00001 and created that sequence. Once that's done here in the company setup document sequence section, I'm able to go to accounts receivable setup configuration and enable the ability to pay for multiple customers. Enable single payments for multiple customers is here in the enable functionality section of the configure accounts receivable screen. So once you do that, you will then have to select your document sequence down here for document sequencing for the AR payment. That will be blank. And once you do those two settings, you will be able to click save. And then that functionality is now available. And then what happens is when I come over to my receive payments here and I start a new payment, I will now have the ability to say, create this payment or apply this payment to one customer or parent-child or multiple customers' invoices. And you can see that that customer number field drops out and is grayed out. And so you also now have the ability to open up the payer name. And you can put in Acumen Information Systems and show. And I can now select payments for different customers in the system. Okay, the rest of the functionality is exactly the same as far as processing that and posting it. but that's how you can add multiple customer invoices and apply that payment to several different customer invoices. One note on that is that on the bank reconciliation, you're going to see that payer name here, this field on the bank rec instead of the custom name, so that you can reconcile that and know who paid that, who is that payment from. And then also in the custom reporting tool in Intacct, you'll be able to create a custom report based on that payment ID that we talked about. And that will allow you to show the individual invoices that were paid. So you'll be able to see that detail, which would look similar to what you're seeing down here with these 4 invoices being paid for a total of $38,000. Okay, so let's go back now to the next one. Inventory fulfillment. This is this has been kind of in beta for a while. I'm going to quickly go through this, but it's a new kind of add-on or added functionality, I should say, is the better way to say that, option for the clients that are running inventory, sales order entry, and purchasing, allowing you to reserve inventory, so kind of holding that or setting it aside for certain orders, right? Making sure that high priority customers can be catered to or can be kind of served first, right? Watching productivity and fulfilling those orders in the order that you need to, allowing that pick, pack, and ship process to be a bit more streamlined, a bit more efficient, right? And so the user will then have the ability to process each order kind of by itself or with a group of orders through the fulfillment process. And then the manager can move orders through statuses from open to, say, ready to pick when the system kind of tells them that, all right, this line's able to be fulfilled, so you can now move this order through that process. So adds a bit of workflow and functionality to the invoicing process, inventory process for clients that are running the sales order entry workflow. Next is something that's pretty timely, right? The 1099 process. They have, TaxBandits have been around for a while, but now with the kind of regulatory changes where anyone filing 10 or more forms needing to do that electronically, this might be a good option for you. You do not have to use this option. There's a cost to do this option, like a per filing cost or per 1099 cost. But the IRS has a site where you can just upload it manually, and there's no cost to do that. But for clients with large volume or clients that want to use this as a service, this is a really good option for filing your 1099s electronically and using TaxBandits to do that for you, to allow you to kind of quickly get through that process in a timely manner. AP bill approval. So this, as you know, if you've been on some of the prior release webinars that we've done, AP approval is built into Sage Intacct now and has been for about a year. And now they've added, they continue to enhance this with things like the recall button. So before November 10th, if I wanted to fix an invoice and I had submitted it to my manager, I'd have to ask them to reject it and kick it back to me. There was no way for me to just call it back and fix the dimension that I know I messed up, or fix the coding in the GL, or whatever the case might be, right? So now I have a recall button. Anyone that has rights to edit an invoice will be able to use this recall button, and I can pull it back. So I'm not bothering an approver or a manager or someone like that to ask them to kind of kick it back to me. I can do that myself and streamline that process a little bit further. Project estimates is an enhancement to the combination of projects and budgets in the system. So for some of our clients that are using the project module for renovations, for new builds, for tracking costs, for grants, for our not-for-profits on the call, this is adding a bit of functionality where there can now be workflow on a project estimate. So I can have statuses here, and you can see that in the individual tasks, what the workflow is. This an original budget? Is this a change order budget? What is that? So I can really now compare the actuals to different budgets in the system and monitor those costs. The also kind of connects to the budgets in the system. So you do have to, if you haven't already done this, you will go in and create a budget in the general ledger, make that a project budget, and then we can connect that to the project's estimates for each individual project and or task and allow you to do that. Certainly don't have to turn that on, but it does add a little bit of workflow and a little bit of functionality that I think can be really helpful to further kind of dig into the granular level of these projects and budgets, which can be pretty large for some of the clients that I see on the call this afternoon. AP automation, the next enhancement they did is, this is in what we call early adopter status. So it means it's not general availability, but it has been added to the system. And so once it's added to the system, it does go out and function and work for clients who are in the early adopter program. And certainly if that's something you're ever interested in doing or joining, certainly let us know, let your account manager know, and we can ask to get you into that EA program or early adopter program. But now they're going to use artificial intelligence, AI, to match to the PO, right? With thresholds, with the ability to kind of upload all your invoices in bulk, just like the AP automation, but then now use the purchasing workflow to pull in that and match those with thresholds. So that's something they had to add, right? We knew that was coming because the PO and the AP modules weren't connected yet. So glad to see that's there now, and we'll certainly let you know when that's ready for general availability for anyone not interested in the EA program, and we'll keep you posted as that progresses. For those of you that are running AP bill automation in Intacct and don't have a marketplace partner like a Plate IQ or something like that outside of Sage, there is a way now to see and track your subscription usage. So you can go into company subscription usage and see that month by month, so you know exactly what that is, what that cost would be, and are able to monitor that and really kind of reconcile that when the bill comes at the end of the month for your usage. Enhancements to the AR and AP aging report. So release 4 introduced a new report filter on both of these reports, where I can go in and select both child and or vendor parent customers into this report. And so you can run it for multiple customers and vendors, or multiple ranges if you want to. So if your vendors are grouped a certain way or your customers are grouped a certain way, you're able to build those groups and then kind of run the reports to segregate out that data and pull the right information for you. So you don't have to dump it out to Excel and do any kind of massaging of it there. For anyone on the call that is a multi-currency customer, they've enhanced the GL revaluation, allowing you to really run it in summary now and group the transactions together at the detail level by now account, location, and transaction currency. So that's a pretty big change, something that some of the clients have been asking for when they're doing that revaluation. So a little bit easier to reconcile, calculate, and figure out what's going on there when the revaluation happens in the system. Anyone using the ICRW or the Interactive Report Writer report, they've added some new canned reports. The AR Snapshot and Aging is one of them, or two of them, I should say. And it really kind of brings together from multiple AR modules to present a comprehensive view of AR balances, customer by customer. You can have up to 40 or 50 different columns of information and kind of different levels of detail. So it's kind of also gives you prompting features like wildcard searches for customers, vendors, and really other kind of invoice attributes that are out there. So adds a whole lot of information for clients that are tracking AR, tracking customers, working on that aging, consistently working to collect that money. Updates to the UI or the user interface. You may have noticed some changes in colors. You may have noticed some of the screens are starting to look more in uniform, right? And a lot more like each other. Some of the modules are catching up. Long ago, did they kind of switch to the new UI? However, they're starting to catch up some of the other smaller modules as well, where they may not have updated the user interface for those modules. So they're continuing to do that. What I like about that really is this next slide, where the new list enhancements are going live for other sections of Intacct. So vendors is a big one. And really you're able to go in and kind of use the vendor list or use the customer list or the GL account list when you're ready, right? To almost be a report writing tool where you can pick filters and settings and have different views of vendors or different views of GL accounts to give you information that's important. Again, getting that information very quickly. Now with these new list enhancements, it's going to remember settings, so you don't have to do it each time. You'll be able to save that. You'll be able to look at things like number of records or kind of split the table up. You'll be able to, they've opened this new list feature for different areas of the business, customers, GL accounts, those types of list items, and more to come, of course, on that. And so really, that's the updates that I wanted to go through with you today. As I said, there are many more kind of really small or really minor ones, or there are ones for the construction application or contracts that I know some of the clients on the call today are not using, so I skipped those. But certainly if you have questions on any of the new features that you see in the release notes for this past release or any of the prior releases, please feel free to reach out to us, our support team, or your account manager, and we'd be more than happy to set up a call to talk through them with you and make sure you understand them and make sure you understand how they would affect any changes or affect any reports or anything that you're doing in Intacct today. So with that, let's open it up for some questions. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. Stephen and I will watch that and see if we can answer any questions. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thanks, Nick. One question that came in, it says, when will be the next Sage Intacct release? Are these quarterly releases?
Yes, they are quarterly releases. So November was the last one, right? And February will be the next release. You'll start to see some information in Intacct at the tops of screens when new releases are coming. You can always check at the beginning of February, end of January. You certainly can check the home page to see a preview of some of the releases, some of the things that are coming, because they're very good about letting you know what is going to be released once they get a little bit closer to that date. And so you can check there as well, but that's the schedule.
Perfect. Other than that, looks like there's not any other questions that came in. So we'll go and wrap up. But again, if you guys do have any additional questions, contact your account manager, or you can email us at am@acumenfl.com. We are working on a new set of topics for our next webinar Wednesday. So if there's a topic you want us to cover, or maybe a third party you'd like to see, let us know, and we'll work on getting it into our calendar. So with that, just want to say thank you again, Nick, for going over all the new Sage Intacct features. We hope you all have a great holiday season, and we look forward to seeing you guys on our next webinar Wednesday.